Well, here we go again. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Flowers, I won't name them. Somebody else can name them. What are they? Carnations, I believe. Again, right? Okay. Anyway, um, moving right along here. I had done a video here a few days ago, and it was a video about finding the point of origin of your issues, problems, situations, innuendos, or whatever. And it seemed to have evoked quite a few more questions in people. So having said that, the obvious title of this one's going to be is now that you've located the point of origin of your problem, situation, issue, whatever else is going on, what can you actually do about it? Before I get into this topic here, I want to mention that I'm not an expert in this area. What I am going to go by is my own experience, and experience, if nothing else, is really that's all you have to offer people. And I think the first thing that I want to say here is this. A lot of people have the idea that change or personal change and growth can be at times a very difficult challenge for most people. I would differ on that particular point, excuse me, by saying to you that once you know the basic mechanics of it, and it's not rocket science by any means of the word, that once you know the basic mechanics of it, it becomes relatively easy. And the basic mechanics is one of, I can put it that way, my specialties. I love to talk about it. And I do have to admit something here. It would appear that in coming back in this particular timeline, in many areas, when I'm doing a video, like I said, I don't really prepare anything. I kind of wing it or ad-lib it or just go with the flow, whatever you want to call it. But at times it's almost, it feels like to me when I go back and I do listen to some of them, and it does seem to me as if I kind of came into this reality loaded with information about questions that I may get asked later on in this particular go-around. And I seem to have the information at my fingertips. That's the way it appears to me. But in giving you this video, I want to say something here that I think is relevant and very important. I think most of us now know that basically as a species, we have a rather large brain. And from what I understand through science and the medical profession is, if my understanding is correct, we only use about maybe 3%, or maybe a few people actually use maybe 5% of the actual brain's potential. So what is all of that other space there for? Just for a hat rack? Or is it just empty space because they had nothing else to put there? So I was thinking the other day before I did this video, and I'm saying to myself, wow, you know, this is really something. Look what we have done with our society. Look what we have done with our relationships. Look what we have done in the care, the maintenance, and the stewardship of probably one of the most beautiful, habitable planets in the universe or universes. Look what we've done with it. And all we've used, all right, is only less than 5% of our capacity. And even though this is supposed to be a school, as I look at it, and I look back over the years of this particular life that I'm living at this time, I've been reflecting on things. And in many cases, I've not seen a lot of change. And yet there seem to be so many people say that we're going through a rapid change and each generation is much better than the other one or the preceding one. And I don't see that change overall in general terms. Yes, there are some good things happening on the planet. Yes, there are some very creative people. And yes, there are some good relationships. But overall, have we really made significant changes in where we're going? As we take a look around what's going on the planet right now today, in all of those areas, you'd have to start asking yourself some very realistic questions about how we behave, how we treat each other, and the way we interact with each other. And as I said before, we have not reached what I call a civilized state, even in spite of what some people care to think, where I believe in many areas of life, we are still a bunch of predators. And we can polite that up in many ways, shapes, and forms, but we are basically still preying upon each other in many different forms and fashions. And in some ways, in a civilized way, as we like to see it, we're doing the same thing. So I wonder, this school, if we're ever going to get to the point where we're going to actually access some of those other dormant parts of the brain. And in order to access those other parts of the brain, dormant parts that are there, that are being slowly activated by the evolutionary process, are we ever going to come to the point where we're willing to take a look at things, simplify them, and apply them to self before we have expectations of what's going to happen on the outer side of ourselves? So I just wanted to what I like to do and what I'm going to be doing in the future is I like to set a tone or shall we say, a broader picture of the spectrum of what I'm going to talk about. And I hope you don't mind that I do that, because I like to till the soil, prepare the mind, open up the senses, and perhaps maybe get people to settle into the right frame of mind, so to speak, so that you can hear. I know all of you listen. I go and I check sometimes and I see some cases the average rate for listening on our YouTube channels about a lot of videos I do are 30 minutes or over, and the listening rate seems to be about 10 minutes, 14 minutes at a time. And then I guess the rest of you just fall out the door or something. I don't know where you go, but that seems to be about it, kind of thing. So I just wanted to kind of set that up with you before I get into the video. I believe that nowadays people are becoming more aware that change, if you want to see change outwardly, you have to change inwardly. The issue at hand is we need more people to change inwardly so we can see the greater changes outwardly. And the way we're doing it now is we're wanting the outward to change so that we feel that we can live the way we want to. We've got it backwards. We have to make the changes within us to see the changes on the without change as they are. You hear that sound in the background? If you hear it, it's the air conditioner. And as I said before, when it's hot, I'm not turning it off. I like to be comfortable. So anyways, as I was saying, when you've located a point of origin of a problem or an issue that you may be having, the first thing that you need to experience is becoming self-aware. How many people do you know right now in your friends and even your own family who are functioning from belief systems, ideologies, philosophies, religious indoctrination, political indoctrination that are coming from environments and input of nutrition, dysfunctional families, hereditary traits, diseases, and et cetera, who are not aware that these are the situations that they're living and that they're not free at all. They are dictated to, guided, manifested, and created by all of these issues, belief systems, etc., that I've mentioned. So the illusion of freedom is just exactly that. It's an illusion. Only when you have freed yourself from the chains that bind you do you start to get to the point where you become aware of a pattern or a situation or something along that way. You become self-aware. When you become self-aware, and say, for example, use me for an example. Long time ago, I used to have a very bad self-destruct habit. Every time I would start to get successful at anything, I would do something really stupid and crazy, and it would cause me, after doing it, I would likely, as I did many times in the past, have to go back and apologize to a whole bunch of people that I didn't want to apologize to. And then I have to apologize for saying things that I shouldn't have said or wouldn't have said if I'd had my head on right. And then I had to sit back and watch and see all of the things that I had attempted to work toward go right down the tube. And finally I got to the point one day where I realized, well, I got to do something here because something is not right. And why am I self-destructing? Anyways, to make a long story a bit shorter here, what happened was I realized that I had a problem with my self-worth, my self-esteem, and my own self-confidence, but I couldn't figure out where it came from. So I went back even further, and I started taking a look at my upbringing, how I had been brought up, the situations that I went through, the 4 times that I had been abandoned as a kid, not just by my parents, but by people who were supposed to fill in as role models for parents and didn't pan out the way I expected. And I started to become very much aware that all of these situations had a very, very dramatic effect upon me, and now were affecting me in my later life. And it was really funny because I can remember the moment that happened, and I had this kind of a deja vu, the light went on scenario, and when I had this self-awareness of looking at I had a problem, and then I went back to the point of origin, I looked at it and I said, holy shit, that's pretty much what I said. I said, if this is what's going on with me, then this is going on with everybody else, no exceptions, to some degree or some fashion. And depending upon the environment that we grew up in, has a direct relationship to the life that we're going to live for the rest of the time that we'll be here, and the patterns that have been transposed onto us that are going to affect us, not only with our mental, emotional, but even right down to our physical health. And all of a sudden, this self-awareness took another step forward. Okay, and I'm talking about things that you can do, but these couple of things initially in the beginning are actually the most important things. To become self-aware of who you are and what has created you as a person, as a man, as a woman, and an adult is probably the greatest gift that you can ever receive. And the likelihood of having that happen to you as you have had the heart center awakening is very, very probable. What you do with it after that particular point is entirely up to you, because you become your own guiding influence, if you will. Nobody's going to do it for you, and nobody can do it to you. There are people who can assist you and lead you by giving you the tools or the doorways to becoming self-aware. And when you become self-aware, like I said, you'll hit another phase shortly afterwards, where what happened with me is, I don't know if this will happen to you, but I know it happened to me. When I finally realized that all of the patterns and the issues, basically for me, all came down to one particular focal point, one particular person who had the most influence in my life. That would be my father. And I realized, and here's something else that I became aware of, and I want to emphasize this point here. As I came to this point of self-awareness, what happened is I started to realize that it was my father who had the greatest influence on me. And I got mad. To say I got pissed off would be incorrect. If there's another level beyond that, that's where I was. However, what I didn't do was I didn't blame my father. And this is an important point. If it's a person that had the greatest influence on your life, and that influence was detrimental, okay, and this is really a point here. Pay attention to this one. Don't blame the person who influenced you or templated you with the belief systems, the behaviors, the lack of self-awareness, self-worth, self-confidence, or anything like that because of the abuse that you may have put up with. I understood right away that my father was not to blame. He was only the result of his father, and so on and so on. Here's the thing that I want to mention to you, and it really kind of will hit your awareness button. The person that you are today, literally, unless you've already reached the point of self-awareness and realization, and a great many of you have, so this video probably won't be of any use to you. So you can just go along and smile a lot and say, yeah, he knows what he's talking about, kind of deal. If you realize now, today, that the person you are is never who you really wanted to become, you became what everybody else influenced you with, going back generation after generation. And once you become aware of this and you get over being the mad part, you can actually do something about it. What you can do is, when you come to the realization, and first of all, that first step, don't be angry or unforgiving or upset or any of those phrases towards your parents, because they're only reacting the way that they grew up in their particular environment. And it's not necessary to forgive them. It's not necessary to do that. Some say that forgiveness will make the heart heal or whatever. No, it won't. It will not do that. What you need to do is simply let it go through understanding. When you understand what was done to you, that the person, the precipitator that did it to you, didn't know what they were doing, because they were simply reacting to the stimulus that they've received, you'll come to the realization that a lot of things on this planet, a lot of the things that you see manifesting in the world now, were already created a long time ago. And they are just now cresting or reaching their peak at this particular time, because we're on the cusp of a major jump in evolution, where we're going to access and open up more areas of the non-functioning parts of our brain. And the one thing that I can say to you is this: can you imagine what it might have been like, the world that we have created, the planet and the situation that it is now, and we've done all this on basically using only less than 5% of our actual brain power or brain function. Imagine what would have happened if we had 10% or 15% and still be living the same kind of lifestyles, belief systems, and everything else. The one thing that I laugh hilariously at, all right, hilariously at, is every time when I go on, the social media, the news, everybody is just hot to trot to get back to normal. Why would you want to go back to what was normal? It's not possible to do that anymore. Normal's gone out the window. All right. Here, let me give you some of the silliness of the situation. So many of you are worried about. It's just laughable. When is the things going to get back to normal? Okay. And my question is, while you're thinking about getting back to normal, this is how I differ from a lot of people think. One of my concerns is, what are we going to do with all those millions of masks that 7.8 billion people are now having to wear, more or less that many, on any given day? Where are they all going to go? Where are they all going to go? We thought plastic was a problem, you see. But most are just worried about going back to normal. When they say they're just concerned about going back to normal, what does that tell you about those people? Those people, and they are still the big majority of people on this planet, are not going to change unless they have a criteria, an agenda, a serious situation that comes up that forces them through necessity to change. Okay? Look at it from another way. Right now, from using 5 or less % of our brain power, we are eliminating species other than ourselves on this planet by the hundreds every year with the present people that we are. Okay? Does that concern anybody? Or is, when are we going to get back to normal? When you see people reacting the way we're reacting, there's room for serious improvement. Those people that are reacting in this way don't see anything beyond a 50-foot circle. And that 50-foot circle of consciousness is all the awareness that they have. And the only way they're going to change is if something painful comes up, they're backed into a corner, and someone is smashing them stoutly on the side of the head with a stick before they're going to change. And you definitely can see this in the US today and a few other countries around the world. But the US right now is I love it. I love the American people. I truly do. If anybody's going to fix it through bashing their heads through the wall, made in the USA is the place to be right now. All right? Because consciousness renewed is being made in the USA on a grand scale. And as we're seeing, many people who can't adapt to change will be leaving. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. So, now, you've become self-aware and you've come to the point of realization. What will be necessary at this particular point is you will need to recognize and file away, and this is where your intellectual capacity comes into play. There is a great place for the intellect, and this is the place for it. You need to become aware of the patterns, the belief systems, their point of origin. And when you can do this by being self-aware and realization, and don't hold anybody responsible for the situation that you're in, because they were no better off than you were, more than likely. So once you get over the anger, take a look at one particular pattern at a time. Take a look at the worst one. that is affecting and afflicting you right now in some way, shape, or form. And this is what you need to do. You need to go into a place of quiet. You need to sit down, close your eyes, call it meditation, call it whatever you want. Don't put on meditation music and hemi-sync bump sounds and all the rest of that crap, and bells and bowls and chimes and incense. You don't need all of that shit. That's entertainment. That's all that is. Spend some time with you in the quiet. In the quiet. The quiet of you. Take a look at the pattern that you've discovered and go back and do something. But first of all, focus your attention to the heart center. You've been given the gift and it never stops giving. Now you've got the ability to be able to use it and develop something that you've never had before. The responsibility of becoming a co-creator by becoming a creator. Because when you become a creator, you're co-creating what's coming down the road for you in that sense, okay? So, when you have contemplated on this particular issue that you're having, you go to the heart center, get it going and glowing, and then visualize it through the use of the imagination in a way that you would like it to have gone, and I'm going to call it fake it. Change the whole programming around, because what you're trying to do here is you're trying to retemplate or remove or break up an old pattern that has been with you in many cases for years and in many cases for generations. You have to start somewhere, okay? Whenever I give you a suggestion or a tool to work with, it's not written in stone, okay? I always tell my meridian practitioners and people that I'm teaching my inner child exercises to, I'm only giving you a tool. You're the individual. Retune it, retool it, remake it, and create it in your own image that you need to reflect upon you. You can have success if you follow exactly the words that I say, but you will have more success if you take something and modify it to suit your needs. The key here is to get the heart center energy into it and take the intellect or the analytical part of the mind, bring them together, and go back in and recreate. Now, by recreating, what I mean by that is go back and see the situation differently, as if it had gone in a more positive, creative fashion instead of the way it did. No blaming, no discrimination, no judging of the people that perhaps, or situations that influenced you to this template. The one thing that will kill anything that you're trying to redo or remake or to do is to blame or become angry or upset at the person or persons who may have done and been the pinnacle of what was happened to you, all right? Now, I know for some of you that's going to be tricky, all right? Because if you've had a trauma and been badly abused physically, sexually, or whatever, or any other way, it's going to be hard for you to let go of the anger. I'm not asking you to let go of it. What I'm asking you to do is to simply project it differently by going into the heart center and seeing the situation in a much more positive, creative way, in whichever way makes you feel comfortable so that you don't feel angry. That's the key point here. Do you follow what I'm saying? Recreate it in a fashion that doesn't make you feel angry. And it may be difficult initially in the beginning, because most people, when they're hurt, they want to strike back. And that's one thing that I want to kind of just mention on a moment here. I'm not suggesting that people become a pacifist. I'm not suggesting that. But we have to learn as a species, as a civilized race that just because someone spit on you doesn't mean you have to pull your Colt 45 out of your holster and shoot them in the head. And just because someone caused you a trauma doesn't mean you have to go home and grab the rifle and get out there and defend yourself or your automatic weapon and stand on the street and say, well, I'm going to protect myself. Those days of run and gun are over. We're supposed to be a civilized species. We need to learn how to do that so we can all live together. I mean, let's face it, people, nuclear weapons and missile defense systems are very expensive. Very expensive. You see. Another question I'm asking, besides where are all these masks going to go, is where are the governments going to get the money to pay all that money out that they've been giving away to all of the people to keep the business and the economy afloat? You see, because governments really, when it comes right down to it, that's all they care about. They only care about the economy. And the reason they care about the economy is because if you're not working, you can't pay taxes. And governments can't exist without money. And the only place they can get money is out of your pocket. You see. And the economy always has to keep growing. And that has to stop in the way that it's been doing now. The economy on this planet has to go in a different direction. Unbridled growth in any department on this planet, business and or government-wide, has to change and evolve also. And it's going to. By force, by necessary. It's going to happen. So, now, you've taken this and you've moved this into recreating it. What you're doing is you're changing the energetic influence of a particular template. I'll give you an example. I've used this one before. My dad had a very nifty habit he used to do. When he used to get upset with me, which was, I don't know, once or twice every week or so, he had this nifty little habit. He'd walk up behind me. This would be over 9 or 10 or something like that, because I didn't see him for 30 years after I was 12 years old. He had this nifty little habit. He would walk up behind me and he'd smack me on the back of the head, and I'd usually fall down. And he would always say to me, that's for nothing now, stupid. Get up and do something. And I remember how angry I used to feel. And every time he did it, I got angry and more angry and more angry. So the natural reaction happened to me is when I realized that the major source of my problems was my father. Now, here's another important point. When you can isolate the one thing, the big bippy, so to speak, of the issues that has caused you the problem, what will happen is in your life that is opening up as an adult, because of that one particular trauma or one particular individual that caused you all of that to manifest, you will attract other experiences that are similar to, and that could be people or situations that are similar to the influence of that one particular person or that one major trauma that you've experienced, that would be similar to it but not quite like it. Why would you do that? Because what's happening is that the universe or the evolutionary process is attempting to get you to become aware of what is going on at this particular point in time. So in other words, to put this back into capacity here, is you could be, I'll give you all an example since we're doing the twin flame thing here. You could be in a twin flame connection, okay, and you believe you're in a twin flame connection. And then suddenly you connect with another person and you've got another twin flame connection going on. And you call it a catalyst, or you call it a soulmate, or you call it this and you call it that. It has nothing to do with any of those titles. It has to do with a similar type of personality to reflect back on you to make the changes, you see. And as many of you have noticed that have had this twin flame connection, is when it's time for the euphoric state, the where possibly we could go type thing happens, when it comes back to reality, it's a little bit higher than what it was before, and I've mentioned this in a video. And then the first thing that comes up is the big issues or patterns that hit both of your buttons. And it will usually be directly related to the patterns and the point of origins of things that you need to make changes within you. You see? It's not rocket science. All you got to do is just come here once in a while, pay attention to what I'm saying, and then go home with all the goodies I gave you and make your own program. You don't need to go to a conference. You don't need to get an e-book from a set of twin flames. You don't need to go to a workshop. Get it right here at Mel's School for free. All you got to do once in a while, make a donation. I'm happy. You're happy. Everybody goes away happy. Well, some of you won't be. See? Let me ask you a question. How many of you are listening to this video right now that have been here, say, 4 or 5 years ago, you didn't like me? You thought I was some kind of arrogant old fart. And now suddenly you're back and you're listening. How many? Just how many I'd like to know. Just offhand. Evolution waits for no one and their belief systems, people. Every belief system that you have, let me put it to you this way, pay attention here. Every belief system that you have right now that you're willing to defend is going to be contested within you. Whether I do it or someone else does, it's inevitable. Bottom line. Every belief system that you have that you're willing to defend is going to be contested. I guarantee it. So, you've dealt with the point of origin, situation, trauma, or the person. Now what you have to do is watch. Pay attention to your feelings. So many of us are just interested in getting our feelings stimulated by some kind of outside source. There's another problem. That we've forgotten how to pay attention to our own feelings because we don't even know what they are anymore, because we've had so many temptations from the outside expressed that stimulates feelings within us that are not even our original feelings. Whoa, deep. That was deep. Pay attention. It may even get better as I get to the end of it. So when you're doing this, pay attention to your feelings and the reactions that you're getting within yourself when you're looking at the patterns that are coming up within you. Self-awareness. The part of you that's able to accept that you're the source of all changes within yourself. Realization. Realization is when you come to the understanding that you can do this. You can do this. So when you do the quick little meditation that I suggested and you change it around to suit your own needs or your own direction you're going, then feel your emotions and your feelings as you're doing this. Stop letting outside stimulate your feelings. You take charge of what stimulates your feelings by what you're doing when you're reflecting upon what's happened. How many times in your life have you seen somebody that you knew as a kid and you grew up? You were adults, you didn't see each other for a few years, and then all of a sudden you meet this person you knew when you were a kid, and you know what? They're still the same person that they were when they were a kid. They haven't changed. They haven't moved at all. In other words, like, I'll put it to you this way. I knew some kids when I was young, and boy, they were just like bullheaded. They were in trouble all the time, and they were just doing really stupid things. You know what? I've met them 30 or 40 years later, and guess what? They're still doing just as many stupid and dumb things. They haven't changed a bit. And I have no problem saying they're doing really stupid things. And the reason is because they have not become self-aware and they have not become realized. And that's the two most important steps that everyone on this planet has to do at some point. How you get there is through this evolutionary process, and usually some sense of difficulty will drive you to that particular point. So, now, there are other things that you can do, but I've gone on here 40 minutes in a video. I don't like to go much longer than that. And I will do another one depending on what the internet. But remember, self-awareness, realization, don't go back and judge the person that was the facilitator of the template. Try to lose the anger that you're going to feel as quickly as possible. You're going to feel angry even though what I said, you're going to feel anger anyway. It's not necessary to forgive the person because they didn't do anything to you that hadn't been probably done to them, maybe a little less intense than you, but it's probably been done to them and they were simply the recipient of their parents as you go along. That's an important piece. You can't carry hatred or bitterness or judgment. You must use understanding. You must use understanding from where that's coming from. Oh, and somebody's going to say, well, okay, that's all well and good for you to say, Mel, but what happens if somebody, killed somebody or somebody was, sexually abusing you type of situation? This is pretty intense. Yes, I understand it's pretty intense, but understanding will give the person the freedom to release that energy from themselves as to what is going. You have to try some of this stuff on your own before you start saying, well, I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that and I don't want to do this because it's going to change my way of responding. Even if you don't like what I'm saying, listen to it anyway. Because once you get your head wrapped around it, you might see it makes sense and it might be the key to your freedom. And from a life of misery and pain and hurt that just never gets resolved or let go in a particular type of situation. Can you do that? Just take a look at those aspects I said. If it's necessary, and there's more comments here in a way, I'll get into more depth in some of these topics that I'm doing. I can go there. I can do this and give you that information. But I'm only going to do it when I know people are ready to hear it. I'm not going to waste my time anymore giving out information that is of no point to people and way ahead of them. I had done that in the past and I did it too soon. I made a course correction on that. Okay, I'm going to let it go at this bigger point. Have a great day, everybody. And hey, have a cup of tea and get to drink it and hey, smell the flowers. All will be good and it's all up to you how it's going to go. The day you create is the day you make, is the day you live. Have a good day.